so Interpol, all of that. And we were selling a tool, actually a solution that I designed at that moment.
Most of the AI tools just have AI in their names for the marketing.
We extract the names, we extract the dates, and then we will say, okay, that guy was at that place at that moment.
You actually said you're working on a solution that ended up being used by Interpol. How do you go from, at that time, like 18, 19-year-old kid just finishing up high school to building a solution that's used by some huge security agencies?
Everyone was very afraid of engineering disappearing because AI.
One of my first clients was a huge client, like a huge hotel chain. And when I met with the director, I was sweating. I was so nervous. I was really afraid.
If a founder don't think that he will succeed,
What's the point?
what's the point? I went from 2 years to building an app to 7 days to test the market.
I guess we're officially starting, Elias. Welcome to Serbia. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to my office. How are you?
Very fine. Thank you very much. It's absolutely beautiful. People should see what it looks like. Actually, it's awesome.
Yeah, so actually the third shot is just a wide shot, so everything can be seen, like even the lights and the cameras and everything. So I like it because I'm a videographer. I think it makes sense for the third shot just to show everything. Like
Yeah. It brings a lot of value, and sharing is caring as well. So you can share with people.
yeah, that's cool. For the people, first of all, this is going to be the second episode in English, and probably no one from my viewers knows you actually. So if you want, take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, tell the people what are you doing actually, or how did you get into business, what you're doing currently, and some fun things about you.
All right. I'll try not to make a monologue. So I'm Elias. I'm from France, and my main line of business is artificial intelligence. To sum up, and I'm not Serbian, but I'm here in Novi Sad, chasing opportunities here because I think the market is awesome. We'll probably talk about it a bit later. Quite classic. I studied a Masters of Science, Computer Science. I opened several companies, exited several of them. Some of them didn't work as well. We can probably talk about it later. And now I'm here, mostly doing AI consulting, SaaS, a bit of e-com, and trying to find the market here in Serbia.
Yeah. What you said about, even before we started the podcast, you said the market here is interesting and it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd like to hear your view as an outsider, because most of the people in Serbia are like, Serbia is a small country. I can't do anything here. I want to go outside. I want to go and make some business invest in America or go to Dubai or somewhere else. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting topic because it's not only about Serbia. Every people think that their country is not enough until they travel around and see how it works abroad. Why is Serbia interesting? For me, I think that it's not as advanced as Western countries in terms of technology. Again, limited to my field, but you can expand it to several fields. More advanced than other countries, of course. And it's a general thing in the Balkans. Everyone wants to outsource. So if I'm a French company, I want to develop a software, I'll probably call a company in Romania, a company in Serbia, a company in Bosnia, I don't know, in order to limit the costs. But in fact, everyone here is focusing about outsourcing, but you can also work for the local market. And people are not doing that, which leaves a lot of opportunities probably to your viewers right now. Maybe they can, instead of thinking about, I need to reach a company abroad, no, try to find the local market because it's basically blank. So you can do it. That's kind of my philosophy on the topic. I think that in order to see that, you need to travel a bit. So, of course, it limits you to some costs. It has some expense, but I think it's worth it because you'll see stuff that exists abroad that could actually work here, but doesn't exist here. And then you just come here and you're like, okay, I'll copy paste, make it work, find the market, and then you can start talking about exiting bigger companies abroad, blah, blah, blah. But there is so much potential here that it should be a priority for everyone who wants to be an entrepreneur, actually, especially in tech nowadays.
Yeah, I love how you say that travel is really important to that, and I actually agree with the fact that Serbia is a bit late to the party compared to some other bigger countries. But then again, why shouldn't we use that opportunity? How do you think travel affects like younger people?
Oof.
With business and with culture.
Yeah. I think it opens your mind. Of course, it's not as easy as if you're in European Union country, for instance, and you can travel visa-free in many countries. Still, in Serbia, you can travel quite visa-free or with easy visas abroad. That's also where I met Nicola, who actually made me meet you, and now we're here. We met in California, so it's possible for Serbian people to just go everywhere. How it affects you is just you'll go with your mindset, your ideas of the country, especially if you go to the US, like a big country, powerful leader. If you go to China, kind of the same. And then you'll see another reality, which is actually the truth on the field, on the battlefield, actually. And then you will, first of all, you have two types of people. The people who will go there and try to keep their mind as is. And you will have the people who will try to understand the culture. Why did California lead and is still leading the tech field? You'll go there and try to learn, or just go with an idea and try to implement it. So it's going to help you to learn, to criticize your country in both ways, positive and negative ways, and to basically find opportunities and meet people, make a bigger network. If you need investments from abroad, same, you meet people quite easily. You will see that other people think in other ways as well, differently from you, and it helps to grow, I think, as a human and as a business leader, if you want to lead a business. But I think it should be quite a necessity for everyone to not necessarily go to China or big countries, but at least in I don't know, you're in Serbia, maybe go to Austria, go to Germany, go to France, just to see how it's different there and how you can grow and find opportunities here in Serbia or even abroad if you want to work abroad.
Yeah. With younger people, I think younger people often want to travel and just have fun. Mm-hmm. Do you think, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, do you think you can also travel and have fun and grow in the business sense, or do you think you have to choose one or the other?
I think that's a super great idea. It kind of sums up how I was doing traveling actually, and I still do. I always try to mix pleasure and business. Why? Because first of all, you can travel as a representative of your company if you already have one, or with someone who is looking for opportunities, so you don't lose opportunities, but you also enjoy, so you can mix both. I'll give you a few examples. For instance, with tech people, something that I always recommend is to go to boot camps abroad. We met with Nicola to a boot camp of one of our friends in California, of the ABC boot camp. And we met there as just people who wanted to both have pleasure, because California is awesome, and people who were focused on tech opportunities. So during the day, we were chasing opportunities. During the night, we were enjoying. During the weekends, we were enjoying. I think that's the best balance, because then you can also find scholarships, which actually opens up new opportunities and removes, or at least reduces, the expense part of the traveling. And also it gathers you with people who are like-minded. So people should, based on their goals, because again, I'm talking about my goals, but everyone is different, focus on finding opportunities abroad that can be funded and meet people and mix pleasure with business. And to be fair, the biggest part of the business is made while having pleasure. You're at a cigar lounge, you'll meet someone, he will open up about issues he has in his company, and then you will start talking, you'll get a contract. Basically, most of the time, handshaking happens during pleasure time. So I think it's very important to mix both.
How important do you actually think having that personal human connection with your business partners is? Like, can you actually go and be only business, or do you have to have that personal connection?
I think it really depends on the connection you have with the person. If you want them to become really a business partner, then it's really important to have the same morals, the same long-term goals with that person, because at some point you'll have an issue with your company otherwise. If you're chasing a client, you don't really care about that. You need to be, let's say, to seduce them in a human way, because that's super important. The fit is the most important part. But then you don't really care about going deeper into the relation. It becomes business. You go from human to business. Whereas with someone you share a company with, you will keep growing the human part while making business. Sometimes it starts from business and then goes into human relations. But it really depends on which angle and which term you want to do. Is it short-term contract? Is it middle term? Is it long-term? So depending on your goals, you should just have a seat, talk with the person. But I'm mentoring several people who has startups, and I always tell them, you need to find someone who you will not argue with about, let's say, the main goals of the company. Because someone who will criticize your work can be very good, because they will help you not make some certain mistakes. They will see stuff that with another angle, help you pivot. In the startup world, we always talk about pivoting to find the market. They will help you pivot. But on the core goals of the company, you need to be aligned. And for that, I think that you need to be compatible as humans.
Mm-hmm. I just want to get back to traveling for a bit. What was maybe your favorite country that you traveled to? And what country did you have the most business benefit from? Can it actually be pinpointed?
Yeah, for sure. So one of the countries that I loved the most was the US. So it's going to be quite surprising, but I really like California. I lived there for a few months. I helped a few friends raising funds for their startups, pitching, all of those skills that are actually really important in tech. I learned a lot. Life is really nice, but I wouldn't live there, for instance. So I separate quite a lot, business and personal life.
Sorry for interrupting. What's the reason why you wouldn't live in California?
Yeah, I think that in the US. So I grew up in France, and I'm half Algerian. So I lived in between both cultures, which are very family oriented, which are you balance your own work, like work-life balance. And I think that in the US, you can be in California, you can be in New York, you can be in Miami or whatever. The culture is very different. It's deeply different from Europe. So I don't find myself into those, human relations. They are more extravagant. They will be, for instance, it's very tough to make a friend in the US. You can have colleagues that you go with at bars or get a tea or whatever. But friends, deep friends, it's really tough. It's way easier in Europe, for instance. And I think for all of those reasons, I like California for the business side, for the nature, for all of that, for the cars, of course. But I couldn't live there long term, especially with a family, especially with kids, especially with a wife. I couldn't. For instance, I really liked Miami. The energy there, if you guys work in tech or have a project in tech, Miami is incredible. You have a lot of people who are chasing opportunities because the cost of life is crazy expensive. So you have to always chase, and that gives you motion to go forward and expand your business. And you will meet an enormous amount of interesting people. Same in Dubai. Dubai, you'll have a lot of very interesting people, a lot of opportunities. I could live more easily in Dubai than in Miami, for instance. We also went to China a month and a half ago. A lot of opportunities. So in terms of business, it brings a lot if you make the effort of adopting their culture, which again, most of the European people don't do when they go there. And it's always about that, about adopting and opening to the local culture. That's how you will open doors, actually, and meet the right people, meet the people who will bring you opportunities. But overall, to live, I prefer like Eastern Europe. I could actually live in Serbia, and no joke at all. It's not because you're here and I have people threatening me around. No, I could definitely live here because the core values are the same. And I think to live, it's very important to share all the values, actually, the core values as a human with the local population. And then the rest business, you can make it abroad. It's fine. Right now, opportunities are probably easier to develop abroad than in Serbia. But core values, I find myself more into Serbia, Romania, Bosnia, all of those, Balkans in general, or even in France, of course, but in Europe in general.
Yeah. I just remember you mentioned right before we started the podcast, like we're talking about traveling and everything, and you mentioned how you think it's important to be physically there for some business. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, for sure. So now most of the people in tech are chasing remote jobs, which is actually an awesome thing, because as a consultant, for instance, you don't need to be there. I work, for instance, with companies who are in the UK, Germany, France, in the US, Switzerland, and I don't need to be there, because as a consultant, I have a goal, we define the goals, and I will make the effort to reach the goal. Basically, you have a problem, I solve it. I don't need to be there. Depending on the opportunity, let's say you want to start your startup in tech, I would say that it's more important to shake hands, that part in business. You know, when you're going to chase opportunities, and in order to shake hands, we cannot do it via Zoom, Teams, or phone call. Same, you go to, I'll give the example of California. You go to some bars nearby, I don't know, in Sacramento, for instance, you will meet people who work at Apple, IBM, Intel, executives, actually. And they are around, and you can just meet them, and they will talk about, you know, as humans, we always complain. So they will say, oh, we have that, it doesn't work. We have been chasing solutions for a tremendous amount of time. We haven't found one. And you're like, oh, how about this? How about that? And you will actually close deals at that moment. So if you're chasing big opportunities, you need to be physically where you need to chase the opportunities until you're known enough to be able to just do it from everywhere, because people will call you. For smaller opportunities, which are still very good, you need to start somewhere, you can work remote. It's not really important. Yeah, I think that's how I would sum it up for myself.
Yeah. You just mentioned you can practically go and meet in a cafe. Yep. You just mentioned you can practically go to a cafe and meet someone that works in Apple or something. Can you pinpoint the first interaction you had that you closed a deal from with a person that you met in a cafe or in a restaurant or something like that?
Yeah. One of them, I was working back in the days, that was like five years ago, 2021. Oh, already 5 years ago. And yeah, I was actually in California, and in a bar, someone was talking about extracting data from documents. And at that time, I was working with a company that was making that, but for intelligence services. So Interpol, all of that. And we were selling a tool, actually a solution that I designed at that moment. But in fact, the core tool can be used in any field. And that guy was in agriculture. So no link to intelligence, but he had a lot of contracts, you know, for seeds, for all the drugs they use for the field. And he just needed something to like extract information from that. And he was just nearby. I was with friends and I overheard the thing. So I just started talking with him. People in the US are very easily reachable, whatever level they are. And from there, we just spoke about it. I showed him the solution I worked on. He was like, oh, that's exactly what I need, but in agriculture. I told him, well, let's work on it. And from there, as a contractor, I made him a tool that he's probably still using. I don't know. But it worked, and signed my first deal in California from there.
Amazing. I want to ask you, when did you actually get into AI? Because we can see the trend in the past like year or two where the AI is booming. But then again, my kind of opinion is, I mean, I actually want to hear, I really want to hear your opinion on this. But is it really AI? I don't know how to define this. Just give me a second. I'm just thinking of how to ask the question. But in my kind of point of view, like it's not AI, it's not artificial intelligence, like it's just some program that's better than the last one, and I feel like most of the AI tools are just have AI in their names for the marketing. Like, what's your opinion on that?
That actually, what you're saying is very, very true. And most of the VCs, the venture capitals, so the people who lend money to the tech companies to start or even to scale, now they just started understanding what you just said of AI is either just in the name, you don't know why, but it's there, but in fact the tool doesn't have any AI, or people put AI where they shouldn't because it's useless. So just to start with the beginning of your question, I started coding. I was 12, and I started in robotics. So no connection to AI besides coding. And I learned to code in C, which is basically a tough language, but the easiest one to make robots. If people know Arduino.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about that. I actually was also playing with Arduino. I think it's amazing for people that want to get into it.
Yep. So it's exactly that, Arduino. I was getting like sensors, stuff like that, and I made a sensor that would lighten up a light when there is a mail coming in the box in the morning, because my grandma was living in the 3rd floor with no elevator, and she was doing it every day. Old people, they have those habits, and it started to be tough for her. So I just made that as a first thing. Actually, it could lead to a patent. I didn't know about all of that back in the days, but I would have started maybe a business if I knew that. So I made that, and then I was very interested in cybersecurity. So I started, going into Tor, Darknet, all of those things that were kind of on the hype in 2013, 2014. And then I understood that I wasn't made for that. I like coding, but cybersecurity is very precise. It's a very niche. You need to love it to do it. And I didn't have that. And I used to love math at that moment. So I started doing statistics. And from there, 2017, started having that interest in AI. And if there are people in AI who are listening actually to the podcast right now, they know that 2017 is a big pivot time, because Google published the first model that we call basically a transformer. To sum it up, it's a model that encodes words by their meaning. So you can kind of see in the world with numbers the meaning of a word. It's very technical, but kind of that's basically the first brick that led to what we have now. Large language models with ChatGPT, with all of that. That's the turning point. And at that moment, so I told you we were making softwares to extract data from investigation documents for Interpol and all of that. Basically, what we do is getting all those words, and then we extract the names, we extract the dates, and then we will say, okay, that guy was at that place at that moment, and then he was at that place, and then there. So it helps map the data and see it as humans instead of having to read 8,000 pages, basically. Mm-hmm. So we create an object, something that you can actually see, and you can map where the person went, or where the vehicle went, or if there is a weapon that's mentioned, stuff like that. So 2017 was kind of the best moment. I was quite lucky at that moment. It's called natural language processing. So basically AI applied to language. It's a subfield of AI. And then with time, I moved to Amsterdam for a few months. And at that moment, OpenAI made a conference with one of their first models, a GPT model. So I went to that event, networked.
All the way back in 2017?
No, that was... So I started working in AI in 2017. Okay. And Amsterdam was in 2020, around 2020. So there they started publishing the first models that we can have now. It was just papers at that moment, 2020 or 2021. And I went to that conference and I saw that, wow, actually that's quite impressive. So when I came back to France to the same company, I was like, okay, give me some room. We'll open a lab and we will try to use that to solve our problems. And from there, we started creating new technologies that actually we wrote some papers on that people can find them actually published around. And from there, we adopted that new generative AI technology, and that became kind of my specialty. So now I've been consulting for Carrefour, for instance, worldwide retail company on what we call agentic. So if you listen now to the trend of AI, you will hear agentic a lot. What's an agent? Basically, it's just a robot somewhere using some technologies. You don't know what. You don't need to know what, actually, that will solve a problem by itself. You give him a task. That's it. It's a new way of thinking, and I specialized myself into that field, which is a huge market now. And that kind of gives a direction to your second question, which was about whether AI was a real thing or just, I mean, if people were using it basically the right way on the market. And I think that a main issue, and that's kind of, from me, an advice to the people who would like to go into that field, people don't focus on problems. They just want to put AI because they use AI to code now. Most of the developers now, they just put a problem and the AI will print a code. In fact, you need to think about how to solve the problem. And if you put that on paper, you'll be like, okay, but we don't need to call ChatGPT. We don't need to call Gemini or whatever model. Some problems can be solved very easily, but it's always easier to say, okay, I'll just send the problem to GPT or whatever. He will solve it. I will get the result, and I will sell that as the new tool. That's the trend. And that has been the trend for the last 2-3 years. We call that wrapper, basically, because they just call GPT and they publish the answer and they sell that as a tool. Now, if you want to raise funds, for instance, for these kind of solutions, you will struggle.
Raise funds?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's kind of... So it became a meme now in the tech field, but everyone wants to be raising funds. Oh, I raised some seed A, whatever, millions. Now it's way tougher because venture capitals and banks understood that our field is full of bullshit. If we put it that way, a lot of people are just bullshitting. A lot of people are just asking GPT to solve a problem, and that's not what we call robust. So which means that you cannot rely actually on the solution. It's not, you don't have enough confidence in those solutions. So now it's way tougher. And I'm seeing a comeback to classic engineering. Everyone was very afraid of engineering disappearing because AI can do the job. But in fact, the core knowledge of engineering hasn't disappeared. And now it's become a big problem because you only have the old people in the field who know how to design proper solutions. Mm-hmm. And I think now we're experiencing a comeback to that. Some jobs will change, of course, but we're putting back the humans in the center of that whole equation, where at some point a few months ago, we were putting AI in the center of it.
How would you define AI by today's terms? Like if you had 1 minute to define AI.
Yeah. So very, very tough question, but I'll try to answer. Basically, AI in general, if we answer scientifically, it's just learning patterns through data. That's it. So
the simplest way to explain it.
Simplest way to explain it. That's behind it. Is what we call machine learning or statistical learning or whatever. There are many names, many branches. But basically, it's giving data to a computer with some algorithms that will learn pattern through data to predict actually stuff. It's always about prediction. Artificial intelligence is always about prediction. Now it kind of changed actually because with large language models, we're not trying to learn to use AI. We are calling something that has access to data. For instance, you call ChatGPT, you will tell it, okay, give me the best companies in that field in Novi Sad. It's going to say, okay, I need to do that. So it's going to plan how to answer. Then it's going to make a research on the net. Then it's going to analyze the research. Then it's going to properly answer. So it's not only learning about patterns, it's about learning how to solve a problem, a generic problem. So AI can be defined by many ways, and it really depends on your application you're working on, actually.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? Just popped into my head, like the thing now with stock market, like with OpenAI pumping more money into Nvidia, and it goes all the way back. What do you think about that? Like, is this just going to be one new bubble that's going to pop in one moment?
Personally, I think that we're living a big bubble. Again, I'm not a professional in stocks. I have some knowledge, but limited knowledge. Some traders would probably better, and analysts would be probably better to answer this question. But personally, I'm convinced that now we're living a big pivot and a big bubble, because a lot of companies that were, no names before, are pumping huge, actually hugely pumping. For instance, in China, you have everyday companies that are just coming from the ground. You don't know how or when. For instance, a company called DeepSeek. DeepSeek, basically, for the people who don't know that, is a company that makes the same models as GPT. So it's kind of ChatGPT. We could see it as a user, it's kind of the same. But it's the Chinese version of ChatGPT. And on some aspects, it's actually better. On some others, it's worse. But everything depends on the use case you have. And no one knew them. They had no budget, and they just raised a huge solution that is now leading the market in China. And these people will just come at some point on the markets, financial markets, and the bubble will break, because the leaders of today are not the leaders of tomorrow, I think, on my end.
Okay. One thing I wanted to go back is you actually said you're working on a solution that ended up being used by Interpol.
Yeah.
How do you go from, at that time, like 18, 19-year-old kid just finishing up high school to building a solution that's used by some huge security agencies?
Yeah, so that's kind of something I learned from business. I have the technical skills, but I don't have the business skills. You develop them, of course, but everything goes through connections today. So there's that company that existed before I started working there, but they had a lot of issues with what we call multilingual data. So basically, if you're working at Interpol or another intelligence service, you will have documents that are in many languages. It can be Russian, Arabic, German, whatever. And they used to make a tool that we call ruled base. So basically, we will say, okay, whenever there is an at, and there is a word before, a word after with a dot and com, fr, rs, whatever, that's an email. But the fact is, this is not, you cannot generalize it. So what I did was I joined the company saying, okay, now we will use what we call machine learning, which was new at that moment, because it can understand words. So if we can move out of the language, because language is just one dimension of words, we can abstract that. A word king, for instance, and roi in French are the same word. So we should be able probably to neglect the language part to get that same result in the predictions. And that was kind of the challenge we had. So I worked a lot on the topic, specialized in that. And we managed to get from services in France, not only intelligence, but other also security services, to more international services. How you get the market on those fields? I wasn't the one chasing the market. I wasn't the one chasing the solution for it. But everything comes back to what we say earlier of meeting the right people by going somewhere. So I know that the founders were friends with people who worked there, and then you organize meetings, you show them value, because everything is about value. You show them that you solve a problem, and then they have no reason to say no, because that's also kind of something I learned the hard way with one of my previous companies. Don't try as a founder to make something that you love. That might be kind of criticizable actually, but make something that solves a problem. And to do that, start chasing problems, not opportunities, because that's your job as a founder, to transform a problem into an opportunity. Because then you will find the market. a lot of startups are dying. Why? I think it's like 70% of the startups that get funded die because they don't find the market, because they never thought about the market. It's just, guys, we love to build stuff. I'm the first to love to build actually stuff. And we don't think about selling it, which is a huge mistake. And that's kind of an advice I could give also to people. If you don't want to lose too much money, try to avoid that mistake that I made and many people made of making something that you like, not listening to people criticizing it, and chasing innovation instead of solutions to problems. Yeah.
So there's one on one side you can do what you love, but if you're talking strictly business, you should always go about chasing problems.
Exactly.
What was your thought process with starting your first startup actually?
Yeah, my first company had actually so that was I was 16 at that moment, and I was doing SEO. To sum it up, so SEO, for people who wouldn't know what it is when you're looking for results on Google, I was making sure that the results of some companies arrive first in the research. That was in 2015-16, around there. I was focusing on tech because I used to love tech. So what I did was contacting many people on Amazon, many sellers, Anycubic, all of those companies that now, some of them are quite huge actually. Anycubic, which is a 3D printer company. I then met them in China when I went there. And they just used to send me their products. And I had that website called High Tests. And I would make a review with video, pictures, and everything. And I would optimize the SEO. So then my website, when someone would be looking for a 3D printer, cheap 3D printer, for instance, would be the first result in France at that moment. Again, now it's way tougher. SEO became a whole, job. But at that moment, it was feasible. So their problem was, we sell in China, but we don't sell in Europe. I was like, okay, maybe I can help you on that, solving a problem. So they said yes, and they just started sending products, and then they started paying me for that, which was crazy at that moment. And from there it moved, and I sold the company a year and a half after that.
So you sold your first startup as an 18-year-old?
Yeah, I was 17 and a half, yeah.
17 and a half?
Yeah.
What was the breakthrough in your mind? You said it's really important to build with the idea that you should sell it someday. What was the breakthrough? When did you realize that you should sell the startup? You can't build it forever.
Because that might be very dumb, what I'm going to say, but I was bored. I was bored because every day I would receive products and I was writing articles. I was giving products to people who were studying in high school with me for free. Write the article. I have already 10 3D printers. What will I do with 12 of them? And at some point I was just bored, and I got a very good offer from a Chinese company. So they just bought it. Most of the time it's very opportunity based. I didn't have that timing. It wasn't like a big company. It wasn't a big startup or whatever. So it was really opportunity based. And I just exited because I knew that with that money, I could build something bigger. And I got bored of it. So anyways, I wanted to quit it. But at the same time, I cannot quit something that brings money. The only way, selling it. So I got that offer. I sold it. And for the exit part, I think that if you create a company, if your goal is to scale it, it's really good. But always keep in mind that most of the companies don't scale. Most of the company will at some point die. So you need to keep other doors open. So the goal is not necessarily to sell the company. It really depends on the business. But always keep in mind that you can do that. It's a huge tool.
It's an option, yeah.
Yes, always keep several options. Otherwise, you lose.
Yeah, with pouring so much time and so much effort into building something, how do you keep emotions out of it?
I think you never keep fully emotions out of it. You always have some emotions. You're sometimes happy and unhappy on the calls you have, especially with clients, especially with your engineers, especially with... So you can never be fully separate emotionally from your business. That's kind of, if you listen on Instagram to all of those entrepreneurs, most of them will tell you, yeah, cold-hearted, I manage my business, no emotions. In fact, we're humans. It's impossible. It's impossible. But what's important to do is to be able to mix, to kind of control that side of you, of emotions, to make pragmatic choices. Are your KPIs good? Are your metrics good? Are your results good? If not, how to solve it? Not by crying, of course. So if you're just emotionally driven, it doesn't work. I don't like, for instance, that company, but my best solution is to start partnering with them. I will put my emotions on the side because it's better for the business. Sometimes you make dumb choices, but sometimes emotions might bring you some business because you're so passionate in your business, for instance, and that happens a lot in the tech world, that people will follow you, because you want it to succeed. So people will follow you. Why wouldn't you want to follow someone who wants to succeed in his adventure, especially as an investor? If he succeeds, I succeed. So emotions can be a great tool as well. But when you need to do strategic choices, you need to separate it. And that's why I always advise people to have partners in the business, because you'll always have that person who will tell you, bro, come on, focus. We don't care that you love this color. Our clients prefer this one or this shape or this UI. So you need other people to kind of cut you in those moments. We all have them. And that's why you should listen to other people also sometimes.
Yeah, I just remember a kind of a story. You said that people love following people with emotion, with how do you say it? I'm sorry, my English is...
Your English is perfect, don't worry. I see what you mean, yeah.
People love following people with passion, yeah. And one story that really stuck with me is when I was starting with my freelance journey. I had one of my first clients was a huge client, like a huge hotel chain. And when I met with the director, I was sweating. I was so nervous. I was really afraid. And the one thing he told me is, we want to go with you, because even though they had options for much older, much more experienced guys with photography, and he said they wanted to go with me because he sees I want to go for it. He sees my passion. He sees that I'm hungry for it. So do you think that that's maybe one of the best tools you have as a young guy, as a young person in going into business?
Yeah, especially if it's your first business and you don't have a proof of record kind of previous businesses. I have many people, I told you I mentor some people who own their first startup, for instance, and just the fact that they are convinced that there is a market, but of course they do the job of really studying the market and everything. I know that they will keep that idea as emotion. They will want to succeed. And if they want to succeed, why wouldn't I help them? Because again, if they succeed, I succeed. So it's always good, whatever you're doing, either raising funds, either looking for clients, either trying to sell your company, to put yourself into the other's position. So if I'm an investor, what do I want to hear? If I'm a client, what do I want to hear? Someone who is passionate, someone who will make all the efforts, for instance, in the chain, to make a good job, or do I want a robot who will just execute? And especially in some artistic fields, so it kind of touches your area where we want that human thing, because otherwise I will take a shitty picture with my phone, throw it in Gemini and say, make from there a nice picture of that place. We don't care about that. In that field, we want humans. So we want people who will put their full heart on the mission. And whatever field it is, that was artistic field, but in tech, it's the same. You want a founder who trusts that they will succeed. If a founder don't think that he will succeed,
what's the point?
Like if you stop here, if you doubt, just stop, because you'll have tough moments. You'll have moments where you'll have no clients. You'll have moments where your solution won't work. You'll have moments where you will be struggling with funds. But that's part of the journey. And if you're passionate, you'll keep up. If you're not, you'll stop. And that's kind of where emotions are a huge tool, I think, as humans and as founders.
Yeah. I would actually love to get your opinion on this, but there's always a saying that if you love what you work, you'll never work a day in your life. But I don't really agree with that, because it doesn't matter how much you love something. Like if you're going to do it for work, if it's going to be a business, if it's going to be your job, it's going to be that. It's going to be a job. But I think that loving that and being passionate about it is going to help with things you said. You're going to struggle with funds. You're going to have so much work that you can't achieve it. You're going to have so many problems. But if you're passionate, if you love it, I think that's where that part comes in, and you're going to push through.
Yeah. If you find a market for your passion, go for it. Why not? Why not mixing? Because you love it. If you share, I have a friend of mine who loved fishing with his dad, and that was their passion. And now he owns boats on the coasts, which is not really like exactly fishing, but he went there. Why? He loves it, and he spends maybe 80 or 100 hours a week. I don't know, but this guy is like always working because he loves it. Because he used to do that with his dad, and he kind of sees himself into that with the memories. So it can be really good. However, some people are not objective on the market part. It's really tough as humans when emotions get involved, but a lot of people love a certain sport, for instance, football. Let's take it. How many people can become professional football players?
Yeah, really small percent.
Exactly. So then you need to keep all the doors open. So chase your dreams through passion, but always keep side goals or open doors on the side in order to secure yourself. Because again, we only have one life. Let's say you cannot become a professional football player. It's fine. Get another job, work on other projects. Maybe they will become your passion, first of all. Maybe they won't, but at least with that money, you can practice football if you want, So it really depends on how you think that your passion is achievable as a market.
I get it. Let's go back to the startups. What was your second startup actually about?
Yeah, my second startup was...
You said you had and sold 3 startups. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So no, I sold 2, and one of them was a complete disaster. So I learned a lot from it.
We'll go back to that.
Perfect. So the second one was basically we were making... So that was during COVID. And during COVID, you had... I don't know how it was in Serbia, but you couldn't go to shops at that moment. And most of the small shops, they didn't have a solution for click and collect. So what we did was an app that wasn't doing click and collect, but was doing kind of fidelity points. We called it Fidelite. If people want to Google it, it's on there. At that moment, this system, basically you had one QR code and you would go to shops, for instance. And the closer the shop was, the more points you would earn. And with those points, for instance, you go to a kebab place or cevapi place, because we're in Serbia, you could get one free cevapi, for instance, after 10 times of going there and buying cevapi. So it's kind of having those cardboard cards that sometimes they stamp. And then when you get 10, you get one for free, stuff like that. But we digitalized it, made it kind of a game. And we were that close, literally, to crashing the startup because we weren't experienced enough. We wanted to do everything by ourselves. And we coded the whole app, even though we're not designers. And at that moment, you didn't have all of those functions and AIs to make phone apps, nice designs, UIs and everything. So it was a complete mess. We took almost 2 years to make it. That's dumb, but we learned a lot from there. And we managed to get 200 people, 200 shops involved through the region of where I come from in France. And we sold it to an American bigger company that were doing the same, kind of competitor, but not competitor because we were small. But we had that offer to buy it. So my partner at that moment went to ETHCC, which is cryptocurrency event. And he met a guy who worked in that company who was like, oh, we're doing the same, but we're 50 million. Their value was 50 million. And we were like, okay, we're just small. We're charging 15 euros per person times 200, which is like a small thing. And then they just offered to just buy the technology because we had that mathematical model. Again, I love maths, so we had to put it everywhere. That would estimate and distribute an amount of points based on the density of people in an area, stuff like that. So yeah, we learned a lot from there. Yeah.
What was maybe the biggest lesson you learned there?
Time to market. That's kind of, so try always to reduce the time you go to the market. That's literally a metric. We call it time to market. So how much time you have from now, let's say you have the idea now, how much time you will put to get to your first customer, to go to your first customer and close your first sales. So now I have that kind of very aggressive pattern that I have in SaaS, which I call the 2-5. I mentioned it last time when we saw each other, but so I put 2 days of work to make a proof of concept or minimum valuable product, whatever. And then 5 days of going to people, to the people of that particular market and say, hi, guys, I have a solution. It's not, it won't work fully for now. Would you buy it? If yes, buy it. And then through a roadmap, I will improve it. Of course, I don't do everything by myself. I have my teams who are involved into that. But it's very efficient. So within a week, you know if you have a market or not. It doesn't need to be like fully working. You just want to see if the market is reacting or not, because you can have your ideas about the market, but the only answer you'll have is actually from that market. So I went from 2 years to building an app to 7 days to test the market, actually. And then you improve it, go to production, blah, blah, blah. But I think that this is the most important thing you can have, especially in a world with everything is moving super fast. Social media, everything. I mean, you know it. You know how much content you need to do to still be visible by people. And mass testing. You need to test people. You need to always go to the people, sell the solution, be present and show that you're reactive as well. If they see a bug, you need to answer within 24 hours saying, okay, we got it. It's in the backlog. We'll work on it. Even if it takes a week, even if it takes a month, but at least show them that you're here. And that time to market and, you know, the fact that you're reactive to people is the thing that I learned the most from there.
Yeah. How you mentioned that everything needs to go really fast. Like first time I went to Dubai is, I think, the moment I realized how fast actually it needs to go, because even though I'm working here in Novi Sad in Serbia, that's the biggest 2 towns in Serbia, and Novi Sad and Belgrade, yeah. And it's fast to my pace because I'm from Kikinda. But when I went to Dubai and realized how fast everything was going, and the moment I realized was when I wanted to book like jobs there, and it was like 2 months ahead. And I was reaching out to people that I know and that I worked with previously, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to be there from that date to that date. Do you want to work or something like that? And one guy told me, like, you should call me like 2 days in advance. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Everything in Dubai is going really fast and you need to be reactive. And like, if you actually want to work in Dubai, which my idea was to be a month in Serbia and a month in Dubai, like go and switch up every month. But I realized I couldn't do that because clients wouldn't wait. Like in Serbia, they probably wouldn't, clients in Serbia wouldn't wait for 2-3 months, especially they wouldn't wait in Dubai, because everything needs to go really, really fast. And that's when we go back to traveling that you said is really important, because I think most people, especially in smaller countries like Serbia and similar countries, they can't realize how fast everything is going. Like, okay, we can learn from internet and everything, but you actually need to go there and see it for yourself.
Yeah, I agree. It's like saying everything is made in China today. Okay, have you been there? Have you seen why they got that market, why they are basically leading the world now in terms of production factories? Just go there, visit, meet people. You'll see the pace. And then you come back here. Same in France. You come back to France and you see that you need for your company to make a ton of paper, all of those taxes, all of that. So it's stopping you actually from moving forward. And I think that, as you said it, when you move abroad, you'll see those things because, for instance, in Dubai, if you have a free zone company, there you need to do your annual report but that's it. Accountability is very simple there. Super, super simple. Tax, you just have corporate tax now 9% on your benefits more than 100K, something like that. Then no other taxes. Everything is so simple. You want to start, boom, you do it within, you have those express free zones, for instance, you can make it within a week with the medical appointment, with everything, within a week. Here in Europe in general, it takes so much time because you need to get that letter there. You need so much bureaucracy, actually, that's stopping you from moving forward. And then the market is the same, because if the administrative tasks are very long, took a lot of time, why would they move, fast? Because that's the pace. The energy is putting the pace on. So when I go, for instance, to people in Paris and I tell them, okay, you have this problem. Let's talk about it. I want to understand your job to solve it. And I will actually solve your problem. Let's move. They're like, okay, let's set up a meeting in a month and a half. Same, in a month and a half, maybe I'll be somewhere else. Maybe I'll be in Dubai, actually, or China, or wherever. We don't have the time. Let's make a meeting tonight.
A month and a half, you already started 5 startups.
Hey, it's kind of the idea, yeah, because at some point, if you move fast, you get the market fast. But then you have another metric to keep in mind is how solid and how long you will stay on the market. Because if you're too fast, again, it's a matter of timing. You need to time the market. We always say that on the financial market, it's impossible to really time the market for trading and everything. In the tech world, or in general, in the service world, or even if you're selling goods, you need to be properly timed. If for instance, you create a system to watch live videos that are AI generated in live, like while you watch it, you can interact with it. Today, it's not possible. It's not possible because those models are too slow. But in fact, it's also because of the architectures, all those actually hardware parts that are stopping you from that. But if you start it in 3 years, maybe at a moment where we have actually the solutions, technological solutions to put that in place, maybe you'll reach a market. So everything is about timing. Is it a good opportunity? Is it not? And also you need to adapt to your clients. That's the hard truth. Unfortunately, you can help them change, like especially they love to see people who are dynamic, move forward, move fast and everything. But at the end of the day, you need to be synchronized to the people who will pay you. Because if their financial services pay you every 60 days, which is the case in most of the tech companies as a contractor, for instance, you cannot move faster than that. You cannot tell them, okay, I finished, now pay me. Okay, it's going to take 60 days because we need to call the financial, blah, 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 the bank. So there are some limitations. In Dubai, I've seen people working as contractors, either in AI, in SaaS in general. Literally, they would pay with their phone, wire you like 50K, 100K by phone instantly in front of you. So the pace is completely different. You go to Hong Kong, the pace is different. Singapore, same. California, same. Everywhere is different. But at the end of the day, you need to focus on the person who will pay you. That's the one you need to be synchronized with.
Did you ever have a situation where you offer a client one solution and he doesn't want to go for it, and you bump heads, and it's the best solution, and what client wants to do is probably the second best or the third best or the fourth best? How do you handle that situation?
Yeah, it's kind of the reason why people hire me, actually, because I always go for fights when it's needed, when a company is consulting me. I will prove you that this solution is better. I will always justify everything. Here's why. But at the end of the day, you're the one who will pay. So if you tell me, no, I don't want this, I want that, okay. If we're business partners, it's different because I have my word on it. But if I'm your contractor, I will tell you, pay attention. This is not GDPR compliant.
You will explain everything in detail and argument your way there.
Exactly. But at the end of the day, you're the one who will make the choice. You're the one who pays, and you're the one who wants a solution to their problems.
And the one that's taking damage if it all goes wrong.
And that's why I always edge risk by sending them proof by email that this is better. And I always tell them, tomorrow it's going to break. because of that. So call me back at that moment, and I will help you pivot to the first solution, because that's the one you want to have actually. But most of the people, if you show them the reality of the field, besides having, I don't know, partnerships with certain solutions or whatever, they will agree. They will tell you, okay, we trust you.
Oh, yeah, if that's objectively the best way to go, most of the people will probably go there.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the pace is different in America, in Dubai, in Singapore, in France. What would be your ideal country to work in?
Of course, as a business owner, I'll tell you maybe Dubai. Tax reasons, all of that, obviously. Now, objectively speaking, I think that you can work pretty much from anywhere. I love to work with clients from the UK, for instance. I like to work with clients from the US. I like to work with clients from Dubai because those pay really fast. On the other hand, I like to work with governments as well. I have some consulting also contracts with governments. But at that moment, it really depends on the topic. For instance, I have some topics with the government of France, and I know the people there. The only problem is that topics are very interesting, but they pay you like 3 months later. And most of the time they will pay you in tax advantages, not really in money. They have all of those mechanics, you know. So interesting topics you can find everywhere. Then you need to think about the fiscal part. Unfortunately, we're companies. But opportunity-wise, you can find pretty much everywhere. But again, I prefer to work with UK, US, Emirates in general, or GCC, the whole area, Oman, Saudi Arabia, because they pay very fast. And they don't negotiate the value as long as you answer to their problems. Whereas with some other mentalities, for instance, in France, a lot of problems I've had was I offer them a solution for, let's say, 10,000 euros, which would solve their problem that cost them 100K a year. Come on, that's a big solution to your problem.
Math, yeah.
It's nothing. And they will be like, yeah, but we need that. Let's agree on 8K. It's always tiring, you know, negotiations and blah, blah, blah. But that's why I prefer to work with other clients from those English-speaking developed countries, because most of the time they're like, okay. And they just send your invoice.
Just the fastest pace.
Yep. But then those clients are also the ones who will wait for quality. You know, we agreed on something, we need to respect that. So if we agreed on a deadline, it's a deadline. If we agreed on certain features, we agreed on them. Whereas clients from France, for instance, will be a bit more flexible. We like to be late in general in France. So it depends. If you like flexibility, France might be a good market. If you're efficient and if your word, actually you're sure that you can respect your words, go for more aggressive markets.
Mm-hmm. How do you handle if your subcontractors don't respect the deadlines and things like that?
So in most of the cases, it depends if we're doing consulting or if we're doing project-based.
Let's say project-based for some other clients, so not consulting.
So I work with, I told you earlier, with freelancers a lot, because I know, for instance, that I can make all the AA part, but I don't have the skills in UI. I don't have the skills in law, for instance, if the product includes a regulation part. So I hire people, but most of them are people I've been working with for years. Sometimes it happens that they cannot reach the deadlines because they were like, okay, I estimate this to a week of work and it takes 2 weeks. Then it's my job as a business owner to go back to the clients and say, okay, we made a mistake. Let's have a seat, talk about it. And then it's also about how you organize the payment part. I never ask a client to pay upfront for the 100% of the stuff. For instance, we'll do 33, 33, 33, one third, or we'll do like half before delivery and then half after delivery, stuff like that, which allows me also a room to renegotiate in case of that. And most of the times, for now, I haven't had major issues with my subcontractors. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's go back to what really interested me. You said your third startup was a big flop.
Yeah.
What happened there?
So actually, it's interesting because this one doesn't involve tech. Okay.
What was
and this one involves you more, your field actually, because during COVID, a lot of seminars were stopped. Just COVID, we couldn't do it. So then everyone pivoted to webinars. So what I did was I bought equipment from Blackmagic, like a few GH5s as well, stuff like that. And I used to just go to those companies, BMW, stuff like that, who wanted to make seminars, who planned seminars, and I would say, okay, just keep it. Keep your speakers. We'll have a seat here. I'll make a full, setup like here. Not as good as here, obviously, because you have experience and everything. And then we'll see from there. So I started having a few clients, and it's good money, obviously, because it's opportunity based and everything. And at some point, COVID just stopped. Everyone went back to seminaries. So I had all of those equipments, and I couldn't know now what to do with it. The main issue from there was that it was not my field. I tried something that I like. I like to make videos, but I don't have the talent you have, for instance. If I do it, it's a mess. You'll find it on YouTube with a few viewers, whatever. It's going to be a mess. I don't have that artistic field, but I tried. I tried to go out of my field, and I learned the hard way that if you are not with an expert, at least of your field, of the field you're targeting, it can be a business partner, it can be a mentor, it can be whatever. At some point, you will have issues. You will have issues because your skills should be applied somewhere else. So after that period of time, I just had to shut down the company. We had, you need to pay your fixed tax and everything, but we didn't have the income of that. So that I learned also a lot about taxes at that moment with lawyers and everything. And yeah, that's the moral of the story was you need, if you target a market, to be with someone who knows the market. Either you or a partner. In my case, I just tried it, like that, flop, it's fine. And then I gave most of the equipment to a friend of mine who now has a company in production in France. But yeah, I learned that way that AI was my field in a way.
So the third startup was by yourself. The first two were also solo startups or with partners?
So the first one, I was alone, the SEO one, and the second one we were two. And he is the one who found the opportunity of the exit, actually. So now he works into cryptos, and that's his world. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, as we were looking for an exit, boom, he found it, opportunity, left.
What do you think are some benefits and some bad sides to having a partner in a startup?
Ooh, very, very, very good question, actually, because I always tell people to have partners in a startup or even in a regular company, because we use the word startup all the time, but in general in business, when you're alone, it's practical if you're, for instance, a consultant. If you're a sole entrepreneur, you can do it. You have your own company, you do consulting, or you do video production in your case, because you are the main character of your company, because you're selling yourself as well. People buy your services because of you. If you want to sell a product, if you want to sell a service, people will want the service or the product. So at that moment, you're not the star kind of the company. Of course, people will see you as the leader, CEO, whatever, as the front end, as the salesman of your own company. But you're not the main character of the company. So it's always good to have other people criticizing from the inside your own product in order to find the right pivot. And everyone is talking about pivot because I think personally that it's the key of success. You will probably never manage to find your market on the first shot. And it's fine. Nobody can do that most of the time, besides some experts who are already bringing customers who have the need, whatever. So pivoting to find the right way to enter the market is a really, really tough exercise. And I think as someone who is alone, it's almost impossible. You need someone else to criticize, because if you discuss with someone, and I think it happens to everyone, even the people who are watching now, when you discuss with interesting people, you will have new ideas. And you will even be criticizing your own ideas. Oh, yeah, my idea was bad because of that.
Yeah. Sometimes just even saying it out loud and hearing yourself changes your opinion.
Yep. We have all the time. Everyone has ideas. Not great, but everyone can have ideas. Most of them don't make the step of going from idea to selling something, to creating their business. Why? Because they have the idea in their head. Start saying it out loud. You'll be like, that's a dumb idea. But if I turn it that way, and then maybe you'll talk about it with someone, and he'll be like, nah. But maybe if you turn it that way, because I have, I don't know, a kafana, because again, we're in Serbia, but I own that, and I have that problem actually in my kafana. But your idea would have been great if you turn it that way. And then it will open doors, and you'll open your eyes, and you'll be like, wow, I can actually sell something. And from there, it starts. So talking with people, partnering, and actually even talking alone out loud will actually help you way more than planning on your computer, asking ChatGPT, is it a good idea? I see a lot of people doing that, and it's very funny. It's a really good first step, but then you need to word it, and when you do that, you'll have incredible ideas coming.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest red flags and green flags that you look for while looking out for a partner?
Oof. It's almost like trying to find a girlfriend. For me, a good business partner is someone that you can trust. First thing is trust. Again, if you trust someone, try to do the things the right way, which means contracts, which means to do everything legally right, protect yourself, everything. Exactly like a girlfriend, actually. And then from there you can think about more core values. Okay, I trust you, but do we think the same way for long-term goals with this company? Because if you have someone who is chasing the exit and someone who is chasing growth and scale, at some point you'll have, a split. We need to merge on those core values before reaching out to something. So that's what I'm looking for, more than green flag, red flag. I think, obviously, if you have someone who steals, obviously, if you have someone who would do this kind of stuff, you cannot trust them. So everything is about your own values, and if you can build trust with the person.
Yeah, I just want to go back for a second. You said when you're selling a service that you're the star of the show. What do you think about personal branding? And I feel like a lot of people think it's a must in today's world to have like a huge personal brand on social media and everything. Do you think it's a must? Do you think what businesses should actually have a star that's a personal brand on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok, and what businesses don't have to have that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone now, we have as humans that thing of we need people to see us.
We want attention.
Exactly. But most of the time we do it for the wrong reasons, because what matters is in business is transformation. From there, let's say I have 100K followers. Okay, people watch all of my videos, no problem. But how many of them will become my clients? How many of them will bring money to the table? So from there, I can start answering your question. For instance, in your case, you're doing communication, you're doing production, you're doing all of that. It's super important to have personal branding, because again, people come here for you. Again, the question is, are you the people, are you actually the person the people pay your service for, or are they paying you your service for actually what it delivers? I think that's kind of the core thing. If you're an influencer, of course, no question, personal branding is key. If you sell communication services, of course, because if you know how to sell yourself, you know how to sell those services as well, or those clients. Now, in tech, a ton of people are spamming Instagram of, I'm creating my startup, follow my adventure. It's fun, but it can also have a bad impact on the business because you're spending so much time talking about what you do or what you want to do that you're not spending enough time on actually doing. And that's a huge problem a lot of founders have. If you have a startup that became famous, Lovable, Deezer, Spotify, Netflix, whatever, it can be very interesting because then you were the CEO of something that became successful. And after that, you will start maybe becoming a board or on the board of other startups, other companies. They will hire you because they know that you made that. But again, people who actually decide that, they're not on Instagram. They don't find you because you have an Instagram account. So in the tech field, it can be very interesting if you want to do, for instance, B2C. If you want to, so B2C is as a business, I sell stuff to customers, so to anyone as individuals. If you want to do B2B, so business to business operations, I want to reach out to people who will decide within companies that they need me or they need my product. Then I will probably communicate more on LinkedIn. I will make publications. I will invest probably in not personal branding, but branding for my solution and reach out to the right people. It really depends on what you're saying, selling actually. I think that's just my take on that. Anyways, in general, it cannot hurt to have a personal branding. It just needs to be, let's say the resources you put on it should make sense compared to what it would bring back to return on investment.
Yeah, but really quickly it can take up a lot of time, which you don't have to spare.
Huge. When I see you, for instance, all the filming part, the editing part. When I see Nicola, who was in the podcast previously, the time he spends every day filming, editing. Wow, I'm impressed. To be fair, I'm really impressed by what you're doing because you have a lot of patience, but it brings you business. So it's fine. In my case, if I start doing that, I'll lose everything because I won't have enough time to actually produce what people hire me for. So anyone should just think about that question. Is it interesting for me? What's the return on investment on that? If it's positive, go for it. Jump on it. If it makes you happy, go for it as well. Because it's not only financial. It can just bring you that if every day I make a video, I will have to work every day. So it kind of gives you a pace as well. So depending on your case, it can be good, can be bad, depends on the business, but also what it brings you outside of the business. It's kind of a whole lot, but as long as it makes you happy or brings you business, I'd say it's a good choice.
Yeah, it kind of ends up. It comes down to: do you actually want to do it as a hobby? Do you want to do it for fun, or do you want to get like financial benefit out of it? Do you want to get clients and stuff?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't realize that doing by yourself, doing social media and doing content like regularly, it very quickly becomes a full-time job.
Sure.
And that's what actually gets me to the next point. Like, what do you think about AI in content and in filming and in photography? Like, let's get back to my industry. How do you think AI is going to affect the whole content creation market?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question as well. I think it will have a huge impact. It already has actually a huge impact. We can even start looking backwards and say, okay, it changes already some stuff. I was in October or November at a gathering in Paris, and we had a discussion with the crowd and everything about this exact topic, how AI impacts the audio-visual world in general. In fact, it's been here for quite a while. If you take Lightroom, if you take Photoshop, if you take Premiere or whatever software, you'll always have those features of AI that, for instance, is managing the masking on your videos. So it was already used, but now it went to the next step, which is not only I will use it as a tool to edit my videos, I will generate videos from scratch. I think that it's an amazing tool because it will reduce the costs of production. So it will give a chance to everyone as well to produce some precise shots, for instance, in their productions. It will change jobs, definitely. You'll have everything will be in the coming years more competitive. Every field, not only videos, but every field. But I think at the end of the day, as it's available to everyone, even if you need to pay for the solution, it makes everything more affordable, and it gives a chance to everyone to actually make content. And you've used some of that. What's with your expert eye? What
with
can you
my
say?
expert eye?
Yeah.
I think that people think that first of all that with AI content, the goal is to trick people, like to think it's not AI content. That's not the point. Like I was just talking about that on my Instagram. My friend and I made some AI videos with a Santa Claus. It was like a really Balkanic Santa Claus, and we post like, I don't know, 4 videos with Santa, and combined they got like 2 million views or something like that on an account that had 200 followers, and it went super viral. I was like, okay, let's break it down. Did it go viral because it's AI? No, but we could have. I could have got my camera. I could have found an actor that's going to play Santa. I could have filmed all of that practically and edited it. It would have took me probably like 5 days because of all the different locations and everything. And it was really snowy at that time of the year. It was like the end of the year, and the weather was catastrophic. But with AI, every single one of those videos was basically done in the same day that we got the idea. So the point is not to trick people that it's AI, like to have it so photorealistic. And you have AIs that make it photorealistic. We as, I'm going to say content creators, because it's not strictly videography, it's not strictly AI, but with content creation, you still have to give value to the audience. You have to give value in some sense. Maybe you can give them education, maybe you can give them fun or something. But the tool which you use to give the tool you use to give value to your customers or to your viewers or anything doesn't matter, basically. Like my thought process is, if it's easier to do it with a camera, I'm going to do it with a camera. If it's easier and cheaper for the client to do it with AI, I'm going to say, hey, let's not do it with a camera. I'm going to do this part practically. Let's do it with AI, and I'm going to save you 50% of the price. Like it's the same for me, and I can save clients some money and time. And it's a really interesting point also that now I'm talking too much now.
No, it's fine. It's fine because it's very interesting. I have, for instance, do you have in Serbia those books when you're a kid and you choose the next action and it tells you go to page that if you want the main character to do this action, go to that other page. So basically you're writing your own story in a book that's already existing.
I never came across that.
So that's a concept that I grew up with in France when people used to read books. Not anymore, but and now I think that, for instance, a use case of AI in videos could be the same thing, but for videos. Like you have a video and then you choose the action of the person and it will create the video, the next part of the video based on what you choose. So basically you're choosing your whole adventure through the movie. Those are use cases that I think could be very interesting in the coming years.
I actually saw one guy talking about how they started putting like ads into the movies or something like that. Like let's imagine like a main character in a movie running around, and I know he's running through the forest with a bottle of water, and then based on what country you're in, what region you're in, and who pays for the ad, with AI you can put like a branded bottle of water in his hand, and it's there. And in every other country, somebody else can actually pay for the ad and have their bottle of water there.
Yep.
And you can customize ads basically.
Yep.
And even in, I don't know, maybe you can change up the ad like every day or two or something. So that was super interesting for me, like from content as a market tool, base of point.
Yeah.
But one other thing that I think is interesting, and then I'm letting you talk, is content. If you're going to rely solely on AI to do content, it's going to be more and more generic. like, and in some time, the creativity that we have, like that human touch that I'm going to have, that other colleagues are going to have, that's going to separate us from AI. So it still is a tool, but I need to know creative direction. I need to know what point I want to prove with the video or with the photo, and I need to know how to do it. And you could even argue that it's going to be harder to do content because of that, because the creativity is going to be a selling point, and it's going to come down only to creativity. But then you can also argue, what if AI learns our patterns and learns patterns on how we are going to be creative, because AI is basically just learning from a huge information pool. I'm not sure how
huge data. It learns patterns through all the data.
Pool, yeah. But then again, I also heard someone talking about how AI is starting to learn from some other AI-based articles and everything, and is going just in circles and recycling itself.
Yep.
And it's a really weird thing.
Yeah, we're kind of reaching that point of we can always innovate. We make bigger models. We make everything bigger and more powerful. But in fact, it's just the same information that's relearned. For instance, you have a lot of data on the internet. I forgot exactly how much, but now is AI generated. So basically, the AI will learn from AI generated documents. And in some use cases, it can be very interesting. One of the use cases I did in the past was we didn't have enough data of investigation documents that were annotated, so in which we could learn patterns from. So I made a tool that used large language models, a GPT type, to create documents that were annotated based on the weaknesses of the model. And then it would kind of fit our model and kind of patch those weak points. It's a bit technical, but at the end of the day, we used an AI to generate data to train another AI. And it was performant, actually, but because back in the days, most of the data we used to train the AI was real data. We just used that second one to provide data on the weak points of the model. So I think that at some point you're absolutely right. For instance, for image generation, now we're able to recreate styles. For instance, Picasso type. You ask ChatGPT to take a selfie of you and make it become a Picasso painting. It's going to be really, really actually nice. You'll be like, whoa, that's a bit scary. Picasso is dead, so it's fine. But now, how about people who are still alive? How about people who want to be different? For instance, we were talking about images, but also in music. In music now, you have AIs that can rap better than some actually rappers. So it's very... That's kind of linked to what I said earlier about the world is going to be extremely competitive. And I could only advise people, and I always advise my clients, for instance, to, even if you don't like AI, just take it in your hands, play with it. Because if you don't understand it, tomorrow you lose your job. Because every job will have a part of AI. It's not going to replace, like AI is not going to replace artists. It's not going to replace, jobs in general.
But it's going to be really incorporated in them.
Exactly. It's going to solve what we call pain points. And for instance, most of my job is on consulting side is to go into companies, or can be done online, whatever, and understand people's jobs to know what parts of it I can automate, basically. How can I use AI to solve it? AI or something else, not necessarily AI, but how can I resolve those issues, those pain points, by recognizing patterns in their jobs. For instance, if you have, you're a chef, a cook, every week in palaces you need to change the menu. But it also depends on the moment in the year. You don't have the same vegetables, you don't have the same. So how about we automate a part of it, which is based on the ingredients you have, you generate a menu. Simple use case. But at the end of the day, then the chef can focus on making actually the dishes, the meals. So it's really about understanding which part of your job will be automated. And the only way of doing that is to take AI into your hands and play with it. And that's the only thing that can help people in a world that will become more and more competitive.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the jobs just can't be fully replaced by AI, but a huge part of those jobs, like, yeah, actually today I was editing some photos, and those were like portraits, and with the generative fill option in Photoshop, I was finishing, it took me like 15-20 minutes per photo for something that 5 years ago would have took photographers like a day per photo to edit, or like 4 or 5 hours, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a huge time saver, at least for now. My opinion is kind of, it's going to be used mainly to save a lot of time.
Yeah.
A lot of areas of our jobs.
Yeah. It's because then it allows you to focus on where you're the most valuable, creative part. For instance, what we're doing now, you can generate fake podcasts, but the value we're bringing by talking, you cannot generate it, for instance. So it allows you to, let's say the editing part can be fully automated, which is coming actually in a few, maybe months, we don't know, but there are huge investments.
AI is already editing all of my podcasts. So.
Perfect. So see, it's already there.
I was even playing with some AIs that cut up the podcast into little shorts and automatically caption it and everything, and those need more time. But for example, if I put a podcast into DaVinci, it analyzes, okay, I have this track. At this moment, this track is speaking. At this moment, this track is speaking, and it analyzes the face and everything, and you can adjust it. But it basically edits the whole podcast that's hour and a half in 10 minutes, and I just go and make myself a cup of coffee while it's done.
And see, we're talking about a generic system, but tomorrow, I'm quite sure that those generic solutions will fit your style. For instance, for the editing, if you do some manual editing, let's say you make automated editing and then you fix some stuff to fit your style, I'm pretty sure that they will learn those patterns in order to fit exactly your style. So it's going to be customized. So it will use generic brick and then be customized automatically to each of us.
I'll actually go back to my industry, or photography to be precise, but I was listening to some photographers, even like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, talking about some AI that they didn't want to use it and blah, blah, blah. But when they started using it, it learns your style from Lightroom editing. And the more photos you edit, the more photos you put into Lightroom, it's connected to Lightroom, and it just learns your style. And when you've been using it for a year and a half, you went through 150,000 photos. That's a huge number, and of course it's still not going to give you 100% of the result, but it's going to give you 70-80% there, 90% there, which is huge. And I don't know, maybe you can even look at AI like outsourcing something.
Of course,
it's you just save a lot of time.
Most of my job before was, let's say, 30% understanding or 20% understanding what people's problems are in order to design solutions. And then the rest of the time I was coding the solution, testing it, putting into the cloud, whatever, deploying it. But now most of my time is maybe like 60% is understanding people's jobs. And then I have Copilot, I have all of those. If some software engineers are listening to the podcast, Copilot, you have many tools that are coding for you. So even our job is getting automated. I'm pretty sure that the first job, if job starts to disappear, the first job that will disappear is software engineering. We created something that is eating ourselves. It's like the snake that eats his own tail. But at the end of the day, is it a bad thing? I don't think so, because the best people in the field will focus on how to solve problems in order to describe how to solve problems to AIs that will code. So I'm outsourcing the coding part, not to Eastern countries, kind of the mentality we have now, but I'm outsourcing it to somewhere in the cloud that is then answering. Of course, then it's not 100% accurate. I need to fix it. But if I work with some freelancers, same, it's not 100% accurate. The main job now is to learn how to translate a design of a solution, how to solve a problem, into the language of the AI, how to do prompt engineering, we call it most of the time, it's a huge skill, and it's going to be a skill in every field. Because tomorrow, if you know how to talk with your assistant, LLM assistant, AI assistant, it's going to solve the problems instantly for you. And that's kind of the direction we're going to right now. I'm pretty sure that, for instance, Tamagotchi. Do you know the little? So it's a Japanese game from our parents' time.
I
you know.
Yeah.
Oops! It's kind of an old game where you have that little animal. You need to feed him.
You
need
take care
to.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, he dies, and then you just make it respawn. I'm pretty sure that tomorrow, and it's already coming, we will all have that in our pocket, but with AI that will assist us in everyday tasks for our jobs, for our daily life. Oh, I don't know what I need to buy. Assistant, tell me what I need to buy in order to prepare the meals for my family. And your assistant will know that in your family you have someone who eats gluten-free, for instance. So it's going to optimize it so that it's going to tell you, okay, you will make that because you know how to do it. And it's going to be gluten-free. So buy that. It's going to help you.
And it's going to be personalized to you.
Exactly. I think that the key now is not to bring generic solutions. It's to bring customized solutions. In the tech world, we call it vertical solutions because you're going deep into a topic, which is fitting your needs. It's a whole topic, instead of being horizontal, covering as many use cases as possible, because you want to solve effectively a problem, not to solve a little bit many problems. And that's kind of the direction the industry is taking right now.
Yeah. One last question. I'm not sure what country. Is it Sweden or Sweden or something like that? But I think that's the first country that gave its people copyrights to their own face and to their character of sorts. How do you think we're going to protect ourselves from AI? From, how do you say? I don't know how to formulate the question, but from being misused. Because I can, for example, I can generate you doing some horrendous things with some other people or anything. How do you think we can protect ourselves from that?
Yeah, it's been actually a problem for the last few years because a lot of revengeful people who use AI to create fake content to people they want to have a revenge against. The issue is that it's available for everyone. But it's also a good thing. So it has both things. It's kind of, with a knife you could either cut a steak or kill someone. So what's going to take a lot of time is to educate people on how to use it, how to not misuse it. You'll always have people who will do bad things. So that's more on an individual level. I think that education will be the key. Control cannot work on the internet because you can always access the data you want through other channels than Google or whatever. For years we had Tor to access to some dark web. You have all of those tools that are just literally available for everyone. So we cannot control that side, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Again, freedom versus control. On a more, let's say, systemic level, how can states behave well in protecting people's data? So, in Europe, you have GDPR, you have the AI Act that we're here. But again, those are rules. So they will be applied by companies. They need to respect that. If I'm using a service that has access to my biometrical data, for instance, and it's hosted somewhere in Cyprus, somewhere in Malta, somewhere in some islands, I don't know where, or even in the US, I consent to give my data to those services. Let's say tomorrow in Europe it becomes forbidden to store biometrical data, which is kind of already the case. You have a lot of regulations. It's actually deep topics. They cannot, as let's say the French government, I cannot stop you from on the internet because you have no border control, whatever, throw your data on Amazon, which is a US company. So depending on where the data is stored as well, regulations are different. In China, for instance, everything is controlled biometrically. So you use WeChat, you use Alipay, you use all of those solutions. You will have everything centralized in your system. So you will put your face, They have a lot of facial recognition, and it works well there. But again, if that data goes somewhere and someone accesses it and will use it to create fake data about you, we can only hope that it's secured enough not to happen. It's impossible for me, I think, to secure it enough or to stop it completely. Because let's say I make a crawler. So a crawler is just a robot that goes in the internet and gathers data by itself, by going on websites. And I go on Instagram. How many people are throwing a lot of pictures of themselves on Instagram, or voice, or videos? So that data is in fact already accessible. It's already there, accessibly, like publicly. On a systemic level, we can put rules, we can put regulations. I don't think we can actually apply most of them. We can tell to companies, you will pay more taxes if you don't respect GDPR. But if they don't want, they just delocate and go somewhere else. It's the internet. See, when it becomes digital, you have way less control on the situation. So education, regulation, because it's needed, it still has, let's say, an image impact. And then it's more, again, educating companies and people on how to not throw their data on the internet, on how to make sure that the service you use is compliant. That's super important. And again, how many people, for instance, do you read the terms when you go on a website?
Nobody.
Nobody does that. But in fact, if you read the rules of Snapchat, I think they changed it like quite not long ago, but before that you gave them the right to keep all the data. So when you send a picture on Snapchat that is supposed to disappear, in fact they keep everything. And it's there, it's written, it's in black on white, you give them the right. So educating people on how to use that and the impact it can have on their lives is super important, super important. And especially with generative AI, you have a case not long ago of a woman who gave, I forgot how many hundreds of Ks she had. She divorced her husband. She sent most of the money of the divorce to an AI that was actually movie star. But it was a fake. Like he was just saying, "Oh, I'm at the hospital. I love you. Send me money. You need to help me."
Fakely AI generated person.
Exactly. But now you can generate fake TV shows, like saying, "Oh, he was actually mentioning you on that TV at that moment, so he really loves you." And she got manipulated. Why? Because it's realistic, to be fair. And people who are not educated, they can lose everything tomorrow if they don't actually make that effort of taking the AI in their hands and play with it. So it really depends on which level we're talking. Systemic, international, country level, regional, individual.
Yeah, but education is the key.
Education is the key.
Yeah. Elias, it was amazing talking to you.
Same.
I really enjoy this. Just before we finish the podcast, I just wanted to ask you to tell me one thing. Like, imagine that we didn't film this podcast, or that somebody's just now tuning up. Let's go back to going into freelancing, going into business as a young person. What is the one message you would tell young people?
The main thing I would say is stop focusing on opportunities. Try to find problems you can solve, because money is there, business is there, and success is there. That's what I would say.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being my guest.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.